They go back to his place, and he's got like this pool cave area, and they go back there, and they wind up having a good fuck after he had like eaten her pussy and stuff. They jump in the pool. When they got out, he called Steven to let him know like he could invite, you know, people over so they could have like a pool party. So she was cool with that, you know. You know she loves sharing with other people, so that's cool. So it's gonna be a bunch of flight attendants and pilots coming, so they're gonna get an open bar and probably have some catering coming through as well because they're gonna need it. So the party's going on. People are having a great time. She's having conversation with different ones, and she had to go to the bathroom. And he tried to come with her, and she's like, "James, I can go to the bathroom by myself." So she goes to the bathroom, and when she comes out, Melissa's downstairs, and she's giving her this look, and so she just grabs Melissa's arm and pulls her in a room, and she's like, "What is your deal? Like, what's the issue?" And she was like, "You're my issue. You don't deserve this. I was born rich. My father lost it all. And now I have to do blowjobs on 60-year-olds just to get a handbag. And you sit there acting as if you're not one of us, but you really are. But you act like you don't care about the money, but we all know you do." And she says, "I don't care about the money. That actually was working against him, not for him." And she starts laughing about the fact that she's been doing blowjobs for handbags. So she goes to try and slap her. Michelle tries to, which is crazy to me. You gonna slap or attempt to slap the girlfriend of the billionaire's house you're in? Are you serious? Well, Bianca caught her arm, and security and James come bolting through, and they escort her out of there, Melissa. And he, of course, wants to know what happened, and she tells him. And she starts laughing again, and he even had to started laughing. Steven comes around the corner trying to find out what's going on, and they all have a good laugh. So it looks like they don't with Melissa anymore. And James is like, "You can't go to the bathroom by yourself anymore. Something always happens." So that night, while she and James made love, she saw this sadness in him. He was a little distant. And when he went to sleep, she touched him. He jerked away, and she touched him again. And he's just kind of like, "Please don't leave me, Bianca. Please stay with me." Weird, right? So they go back to New York. He goes straight to the office from the airport. She goes to the penthouse, but she's got something planned. So she's going to go meet up with Sven Jr. She didn't tell James about it. Now remember, she had promised him that she would go with her security, and she's not doing that either. So she texts Finn Jr. Um, to see if they can meet up at like a coffee shop or whatever. He's like, "Absolutely." And she only takes her debit card, so she leaves her phone as well. She sneaks past security because Johnny was too busy talking to the woman at the front desk. And I mean, he's never concerned. I mean, that's just the truth. But here's the thing. So for him, I don't feel bad. But I feel bad for Blake, the woman. I do, because she tries to keep you safe, and here you are ducking your security. You know? So she sneaks past security, gets to the coffee shop, and immediately she knows who Sven is because it looks like her face. But it also looks like her father. They have really good conversation. We find out he didn't get beat up, but his mother did. So when he turned 18, he got out of Dodge, and he used to try and get his mother to leave, but she never would. And he realized there was just nothing he could do. He does feel guilty about it, but at the same time, the mother was never going to leave, and he couldn't stay there anymore. So then Bianca had expressed feelings of guilt, and he said, "Don't do that to yourself. There was nothing you could do about it." He was shocked to find out that Bianca was beaten up as well because he never got beat up. But she said, Bianca told him, I think he just has an issue with women because his mom disinherited him for marrying my mom. And so I think he blames women for his downfall. And so he has no respect for women. And that makes sense since he never beat on the son. They're talking, having a good time, and we find out he's got a girlfriend. She's a model. He's a stockbroker, makes pretty good for himself. He gets a text message from his boss asking him where he is, and he kind of got irritated because he was like, this is my personal time. He doesn't get to ask me that. And she realizes it's James. And sure enough, James pops in and he is seething. Doesn't even really acknowledge Sven Jr. too much. He just kind of says, Sven Jr., this is not a good time. She gets up with him, goes with security, and there's no Johnny. So I'm quite sure they let Johnny go. They go back to the house. Steven comes around the corner because I guess James had like sent out a search party for her. And so Steven and James get into it because when he went up to go up to Bianca, James put his hand up and he's like told Steven to stay back. You're not going to get between us. And Steven says, I am always going to be here for her, for my girl. And he was like, your girl. And he like snatched up Steven. And she had to like say to James, like, and say to Steven, Steven, it's okay. He's going to take me upstairs. We have some things to work out. It's okay. If I need you, I promise I'll tell you. Steven's like, okay, just as long as you know I'm here. So then they leave and they clearly are going to the playground, for which is not going to be a playground. This is probably going to be a fucking torture chamber. But even with that little situation right there, he's concerned because he knows y'all do this BDSM and your ass you look unhinged. And that's not okay to participate in that shit when you look unfucking hinged. So if he was not a good friend, he would have just been like, they play hardcore, nothing to do with me. I'm just gonna enjoy his money. But he doesn't care about that. Who he cares about is Bianca. And he's not gonna let anybody hurt him. As much as he likes James, he's not gonna let anybody hurt Bianca. It's just not gonna happen. He takes her up to the fourth floor, ties her to the bed, leaves her there, undresses her, leaves her. She eventually falls asleep. He comes in, unties her, gives her some food, leaves her again, won't talk to her. She wakes up eventually. He's sitting in a chair. She goes up to him, and we find out he thought she had left him. On top of the fact that the father wants her dead, right? And she told him, I would never leave you. I just wanted to meet him. I wanted to feel normal. I didn't want to meet him with security. But see, you lied to him because you told him you would bring security. So with that, I'm on his side. You act as if there's not an unhinged killer on the loose looking for you. You know? And he says to her, all it takes is one bullet and you're gone. And I'm terrified that I'm going to lose you. And she felt awful and she's like, I'm sorry. She felt stupid and she should have. It was a stupid move. It was careless, to do that. It really was. And he says, what if him and the son were working together to lure you out? She's like, he's like, I'm not saying it's the truth. I'm just saying, what if that's the possibility? Look at how open you gave him to get you. So she thought that her being locked away with her thoughts was her punishment. Oh no. He's gonna work her over. So he brought down a St. Andrew's cross, tied her to it, fucked her. He kept withholding the orgasm from her. So he would fuck her hard and then she couldn't come. And she had to suck him out first. But after that, he told her, if you come, then you'll have to go a week with no orgasms. And then he winds up piercing her nipples. Yes, I said piercing her nipples. Fucks her again, goes to sleep. We then switch to Steven's POV again. I wonder if they're ever going to give us James's POV. But I love Steven, so I'm good. If this is the only one they give us. So he, of course, is worried. He only slept for like maybe 30 minutes because he's concerned. I would be too. Um, you see someone boiling with rage and they take your friend and I get it. So he has a memory of when he first met Bianca. So they were both homeless and he saw that she was trying to downplay how gorgeous she was by wearing all these baggy clothes. And he just automatically took to watching out for her. He noticed this old man leering around her. And so when he saw this guy follow her into the abandoned building, he followed. And when he got in, one of his, this guy that sets up his fights was like, hey, I got a fight for you. And he was like, not right now. And the guy was like, that guy's not he's worth more trouble than you think. And so that lets me know he knew what that guy was in there about to do. And sure enough, the dude was about to RAPE her. But he got his pants down and he had his hand over her mouth. But Steven got there in time and he beat the shit out of the guy. And when he felt Bianca's hand on his shoulder, she told him that he could stop. It's okay. He's not going to try anything again. And so she's like, I know a place where you can get cleaned up. You shouldn't have his blood on your hands. And they have been thick as thieves ever since. And when he told her that he was gay, she said, you don't have to, because he was like, I don't want you to feel like you have to worry about me because, I'm gay. And she says, you're a good guy. And the fact that you're gay had nothing to do with it. I knew you were a good guy. And that meant the world to him. And he really felt like he had found family. So we bring it back to the present. It's been about 2 hours. James comes down to talk to him, shows him a video. It's a sex tape. And he's like, do you think she'll leave me behind this? And he says, that's what's been perturbing you so bad. So the sex tape is going to drop. And he's trying to stop it, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to. It's old, clearly, but he's afraid she's going to leave him. And he says, honestly, I don't know. He says, hopefully she won't, but I don't know. There's just certain things that make her skittish, and I'm not going to lie to you. It is a possibility. So he also apologized. Steven did. He's like, listen, I wasn't trying to come between the two of you, but you have to know that I have to make sure that she's okay. And he said, that's fine. He's like, but I need you to do something for me. He's like, I need you to sell your house. He's like, because she won't sell it unless you do. He's like, I'm going to buy you a house right next to mine. So you all will still be neighbors, but you got to sell the house because the father knows where she lives, and it drives me crazy, the idea of her going back there. So Steven at first was like, I got to think about it. But in his head, it was like, if this is what's going to keep me close to my girl, then that's what we're going to do. It's a no-brainer. So she wakes up the next morning and he's already inside of her. They're fucking. He tells her the video leaked this morning, and she said, is it recent? He said, no. He said, it's from like 3-4 years ago. She said, who's in the video? He said, Jolene. He said he doesn't think she leaked it because the amount of money that he was offering to keep it off from leaking, she would have jumped at that. So if it wasn't her, it's definitely someone that was trying to hurt. And she tells him, I wish you would have told me a week ago. She's like, if this is going to work, you got to tell me stuff. Like, you can't push me away. And he said, I promise. So then she asked him, he has scars on his wrist. And we find out they're from, I kind of figured this already. They're from when that older cousin, when he used to violate him. Because remember, he said he used to tie him up. So that made sense. But also, apparently, the cuffs that he used, they used to dig into his skin if you try and moved around. And he doesn't know if that was like because he wanted to see blood or what it was about. she told him, she loves him. She's not going to leave him for this. And he, of course, tells her, I love you more than I love myself. And that scares her because that kind of self sacrifice, it means it could take him away from her. So they spend the rest of the day. They work out. They fuck in the gym. They head out to Las Vegas. She's got a meeting with Danica. And they're going to Steven's house first. The paparazzi was insane. People yelling out, do you like to be spanked, Bianca? Like all this type of stuff. Uh, did they get? I think James was there too because he was in the back, and Bianca was ready to fight him. It was wild. But anyway, they finally get inside, and her and James fuck and then fall asleep. And then they go to the hotel casino. He's got some work to do. And so she's with Danica, and they're finalizing the plans for her show that's going to be in LA. So she's going to do it about a week after her furlough ends. She's really excited. And then they're talking about going on a trip to Tokyo. So she's really excited. So Danica is half Asian, but she wasn't close to her mother, who was Asian. She tells her, like, you guys are like this supermodel couple. And Bianca's like downplaying who she is. And Danica's like, you need to own it. You're beautiful. You are stunning. Accept it and move on. Get some self-esteem, So they wind up having lunch with Frankie. Also, she noticed that there's a limp when Danica walks. It's just slight, but she can tell. So I wonder what happened with that. So they meet up with Frankie, and they have lunch, and then they get into it a little bit, Frankie and Danica, because Frankie brought up Tristan and that she's going to bring him to the showing. And Danica's like, you can bring him, but there's just nothing for me to talk about with him, And Frankie tried to say how much Tristan loved her. And Danica was like, listen, if you want us to remain cool, you got to stop with this. So I'm thinking Tristan did something to where she's now walking with a limp. And if that's the case, I don't know if there's any coming back from that shit. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So Frankie stops, and hopefully we'll get that story, but she stops talking because I think she realizes Danica was at that point of, I will stop talking to you for good if you can't get it through your head. Shout out to Danica for, putting up her boundaries. So the girls continue to eat, have a good time, and then Frankie's like, I have an idea. So she wants to put James's name on Bianca, not on her chest because James doesn't like breast tattoos, but like on the back of her shoulder. And so she's talking about it, and the more she talks about it, the more the idea is intriguing to Bianca, and she decides she's going to do it. So they go and get it done, and then afterwards she goes and visits with James. She doesn't tell him about the tattoo. He finds out when they get home, and he also lets her know that Steven is going to be staying with them until the danger has passed. And that made her super happy. And so when he's taking off her shirt, he sees it, and he gets pissed. And he's like, I'm going to kill Frankie. And he's going off, and she is able to explain it to him so that he can't be mad. And she was just kind of like, this is my way of proving to you that I'm committed. She's like, why is it a problem for you to say it, for you to do these wonderful things, but then I can't do it, And so he lets it go. So we fast forward to the Frankie's event, red carpet event. She's dressed up in this little silver thing. Our girl Bianca, she looks great. They walk the red carpet. Javier and Steven come. And he's still not talking to Frankie. James is not. He hasn't spoken to her in a week. And when she comes over to him, he's still cold. He's mad at her still about it. Um, but he just tells her, we'll talk, and leaves it at that. Tristan comes over, and James blocks him so he can't hug Bianca. And Bianca just waves at him. And then Tristan jokes and stuff like that. And she realizes they really are great friends. And then all of a sudden, Tristan's eyes changes because Danica has come in the building. And she's come in with someone named Andrew, her date. And she introduces him to everybody. And after Danica and Andrew left, Tristan's like, I need to go punch something before I punch someone. And when they leave, Bianca's like, does he have an issue with the Andrew guy? And James is like, he's never met him. This is the first time that he's seen her with someone. Tristan's been in love with her, I guess, for the past 5 years. So I'm thinking 5 years sober. So you figured out you loved her after you destroyed the relationship? Like, like none of this stuff is pointing good for Tristan. It really isn't. Because it just seems like he did so much dirt and then he realized what he felt. And when people do that, I'll be like, fuck off. For the next week straight, James kind of stays glued to Bianca's side. Especially when she doesn't have a flight to take. And she figures it's because he doesn't want her to watch that video. But one day, she's in her studio, she's painting, and she realizes, oops, I'm by myself. She goes to the computer, she types in James Cavendish's sex tape, and voila, it appears. And the person that did the video had these edits that irked her. Like when Jolene came on the screen, it was like, hottest fucking woman I've ever seen. Then when James Dick comes into play on the camera, oh my gosh, she's so huge. Like all this type of stuff. But what she could clearly tell was two things. This was done without his knowledge. And also, there's no emotion. Like when she came in the room, she got kind of mad because she saw like this black slip that's similar to the one he has her wear. But he had her make her bow her head. He didn't kiss her. There was no emotion. And so he beat her with this hard thing. And then afterwards he fucked her. He put a condom on, and never looks at her face. So there's no connection. So even though seeing him fuck somebody else irked her, she realizes the way he's been with her, he's never been this way with someone else. Or shall we say there's no proof of it. So that did make her feel a little bit better. However, as she was looking at it, James pops in. He didn't say a word. His eyes glazed over and he left. So maybe 10 minutes later, she got up to go look for him. Couldn't find him anywhere. Called security and they're like, he's not answering. He's out. That's all we know. She chilled out. Well, she tried to. She tried to paint. Didn't work. She tried to watch TV. Didn't work. She called Steven, talked to him for a couple of hours. Around 7 p.m., she decided, fuck it, I'm going to the Cavendish Hotel. He's probably there. So she calls security. They take her there. Sure enough, that's where he is. And he looks miserable. And so she went to him and she told him, like she wasn't mad, that she understood everything. He was so happy. He pulled her into his lap. They have a nice hard fuck. They had quite a few fucks, actually. And then it looks like he knocked on her cycle, but he still wanted to eat her cooch. And she said, I have to shower first. So, showered. He does it. And I guess it's this possessive thing with her body. Like, he told her, he's like, I don't care what time of the month it is. Your body belongs to me. So, for him, it's just another form of possession. So, we fast forward. And it's her last shift. Her and James go over to Sophia and Parker's, which is Jules' brother, by the way. And they're having dinner, and she talks with Sophia, and then James is playing with their kid, Elliot, and he's a natural with them. And so she knows he wants children. And so when they get in the car, she tells him, I know you love kids, but I don't think mothering. And he stops her. He's like, we don't have to make a decision today. It'll be your sole decision. Just know I can't live without you. That's all you got to understand. But there's the guilt that if she doesn't want kids, she clearly sees that he does. That could be an issue. But hopefully he means what he says when he says, I want you. Whatever that entails, I want you. So afterwards, they went to the little last hurrah shindig with the crew. That lifted her spirits going to the cruise shindig. And then she flies back to Vegas. And no, I'm sorry, no, they go to Los Angeles because she's got her showing. And there's a Cavendish Hotel, of course, in Los Angeles, and the gallery's right next door. So we find out Javier and Steven, they also took the involuntary furlough because they're going to be opening up this club on the hottest, in Vegas on the hottest strip. So it's sweet. Everyone's starting these new beginnings. And so she has her show. Everything is absolutely stunning. She sold quite a few paintings. I think the highest went for like 50 grand, no lower than like 10 grand, which was so much for her. And Danica was like, oh, they'll go for even more the next time you have a showing. So there were people buying it. Because at first I was like, is James doing this shit? But no, there were actually other people that were buying her work. They really love it. So that was really sweet. And I'm sure that gave her the confidence, not only in just her painting as an artist, but also felt a little security too, like, okay, but I'm making this money. This is also going for me. I'll still be able to sustain myself in the event the relationship doesn't work. So that was nice. Sven Jr. came. He brought his girlfriend Adele. She's not this like strikingly beautiful model. She's like a normal looking model that gets a lot of work, but she's a really sweet, kind girl. Sven even bought a painting. It was like 13 grand. She's like, you don't have to do that. I will do something for you for free. He was like, no, I want to support you. He was like, but I will never turn down anything for free. So if you paint me something in addition, I'll take that as well. So I loved it. People loved her work. So she went to the restroom. James, of course, was waiting for her, like down the hall. She was about to come out, and Danica comes in, and so she goes back into the stall, and there's this conversation going on between Danica and Tristan. And she basically told him, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I just don't want to. I don't want anything to do with you. Stop following me. And he's all like, I miss you every day. And she's like, I don't care. And he was like, will you ever forgive me? She says, I forgave you a long time ago, but I will never forget what you did to me. And I will never go back to that place again. So just leave me alone. So they leave out. She eventually comes out. She tells James what she heard. James doesn't know the full story of what happened with Tristan and Danica, but what he does know is that Tristan is the reason that Danica has that limp, and that she used to be an amazing dancer. And after whatever went down, that dream died. And she's left with a permanent, reminder of it. So Danica came up to her after, and because James went to go check on Tristan, and Danica came up to Bianca and was like, I knew it was you in the restroom because I saw your shoes. She's like, I'm sorry. I know if I probably came across like a raging bitch, and she's like, but after he went to rehab, he kind of stopped talking to me, He goes on this apology tour for everybody else, and then it's like, now I'm just supposed to just want to talk to him? Like, no. So Tristan is in a band. He's also a magician. And he's really famous. Like, everyone seems to know him. But, our girl doesn't really watch a ton of stuff. And she's not really into celebrity shit. So she doesn't know who he is. Now, what I will say this, while they were in the restroom, he did try and explain to her that the reason he didn't keep coming around was because if he saw the disappointment in her eyes, he would have just went back to drugs and he wouldn't have survived it. So that's why he tried to stay away from her. I'm like, okay. So Bianca tells her she understands. She said, you have to do what's best for you. That's what's important, you know? So they left, and as they were leaving out, someone threw a soda. They were trying to hit Bianca, but it hit Blake because she jumped in the way of it. And James told her she's getting a raise because the women were like yelling how big James's dick was. But it also made Bianca think like, shit, her job is to jump in front of a bullet too. And that concerns her. But I'm like, girl, yeah, that's what security is. When they get those types of jobs, right? So they are going to be in Tokyo for 2 weeks. She's so excited. He's got some work to do as well because he's got Cavendish's hotel over there as well. Um, they stop in Maui, and she's like, "Why are we doing this?" And he says because he's gonna have a meeting with Akira. So he's gonna let the guy know that he needs to step up if he wants Lana. He needs to go basically get her. So they have the meeting. Akira comes up and he's says to him, like, I've seen pictures of you and Lana together. And he said one of the outlets said that you all were dating. And he was like, James was like, we never dated. She's been too hung up on you for all these years. She won't date anyone. And so then James told him, if you want her, you need to go and get her. And he says, how can I tell her anything? She never comes to the island. And he says, well, you know her father. Have him send her on business over here. And if you can't make her stay, then that's on you. So after that, the lunch goes okay. And we'll see how that pans out. They get on the plane. And they've got another 8 hours before they get to Tokyo. And as usual, they fuck and then go to sleep. They get there, they have a wonderful time. She loves the culture. They wind up fucking in this tea house where they have this like ceremonial tea. And he was looking a little too much at the woman serving, and it made her jealous. And she had asked him, like, do you want her? And he says, no. He says, but I would like for you to like learn how to serve me like that. So he's going to have her take some lessons. They have a nice heart fuck. And then after that, they went around and did a lot of stuff. They describe everything they did. That's too much for me to get into. It's a good read, I'll just say that. So they climbed, what was it, Mount Fiji? They were going to they're going to camp overnight because he had asked her if she'd ever been camping, and she said the last time was a few years ago with Steven, Damian Murphy, and some of the other crew. And he, of course, looked at her. She's like, nothing happened. I shared a tent with Steven. So we find out that what he's done is he has called a friend of his who has a private jet, and he's going to have his friend hire Murphy and Damien as the pilots, and then have Jessa be the flight attendant. So that way Jessa and Damien might finally be able to get something going for real. So that's his way of being nice, but it's also his way of making sure that Damien gets unstuck from Bianca. So she, of course, says, thank you. I really do appreciate that, because she was worrying about the other people. Like, she knew she was good, but she was worried about the other people. And so then he gets on one knee, and it's he proposes to her. It's a princess cut with the sapphires. It's the same. It matches the earrings, the mother's earring. So she knows this is his mother's ring. And she says yes, and then afterwards they have a nice hard buck. She wants to tell Steven about the engagement. She wants him to be the first to know. She was a little concerned because their lives are changing, and she's terrified the closeness of her and Steven is going to change, and she doesn't want that to change. But James tells her, I'm not trying to break up your family. I'm just trying to join. That's it. And that made her happy because Steven is her family. They get back to New York. The day their engagement was announced was also the date that that the cover from the photo shoot that magazine is releasing. So it's a lot of big hoopla. They also had a charity event to attend to, so they go. They run into Sophia and Parker. They, of course, Sophia's so happy. She's asking the wedding questions, and she's like, I have no idea. Bianca's like, I haven't thought about that stuff yet. So she's like, whether it's big or small, you'll be invited. And so then she leaves, and then Scott, Jolene's husband or ex-husband, I don't know, he comes over. He's pissed off. He's going off to James, and he's like, you ruined my relationship with Jolene. He's like, after that tape, he's like, there was no way I could stay with her. So James does tell him, I don't think it was Jolene that released it. I don't think she would do something like that. She's too pragmatic, like, she's not going to do that unless she's got something to gain from it. And she had nothing to gain from it. But he thought that she did it just to spite James because she couldn't have him anymore. So James says, I don't know who did it, but I'll let you know once I find out. And he's like, please, would you let me know? Because he wants her back, and any type of little reason he can have to get her back, he'll take it. So my thing is, just let the bitch do what she want to do. Let her fuck whoever she want to fuck, and don't give no problems. Because you already know what she's about. It shouldn't be no issue. I'm just saying. So he walks off, and then she has to go to the bathroom. Bianca does. Blake goes with her. And fucking Jules pops up. She wants to speak with Bianca. Bianca's like, oh my gosh, like, what the fuck do you want? Why are you here? She says, I'm the one that released the tape. I figured it might have been her, So she says that Jolene had gotten high on opioids and had revealed that the tape existed. And so she stole it from her and released it for spite. And she goes, why? Why? It doesn't make sense. What do you get out of it? She says, we were supposed to get married. And that just made Bianca lose it. She's like, you are so delusional. You were never even in a relationship. Get over it. Get a life. So she winds up dragging Jules into a stall and dunking her head in the toilet a few times. And then, of course, Jules is like, how could you do that? She said, just for the spite of it, And so Jules runs off, and Blake's having a good laugh. And she's like, you think she'll leave me alone now? She said, oh yeah, little princess she's too embarrassed now. That's probably the worst thing that's ever happened to her. So then James and Lana come running in, and she told him what happened, and all he could do was just laugh. And he's like, yeah, like, looks like when it's just you don't need me to handle anything. Like, hell, you didn't even need security to handle anything. They went back to Vegas. She wanted to get some stuff from the house, but the only way that James would allow her to go was if she took security and Steven and Javier. So they all go along, and so everything's fine at first. Then they start hearing fucking gunshots. She was on the phone with James as it was happening. Blake told her to get down. She goes down, and she hears a voice, and she winds up getting up, going to the door, and because Blake had ran outside, and it's in the backyard, and James is like screaming at her, like, tell me what's happening, tell me what's going on. And he's like, I've already called the police. He's like, and I'm on my way. Because he was with Tristan. They were working out a deal for Tristan's show for the following year. And she told him, I love you, and I'm sorry. And she hangs up the phone and opens the door. We switch to Steven's POV. What was happening is he came into the house, him and Javier. Javier wasn't helping that much. Javier was looking at pictures. And then they heard the gunshots at first, and then he was getting up to leave, and Javier was like, tried to stop him. He's like, don't put yourself in danger. And he says, I have to make sure Bianca's okay. So he goes outside. He sees the dad, Sven Sr., and he also sees blank crumbled, bloodied up. The dad's got blood on him, but he must have fought her, and he must have got something in his system, because he should have been down. But he looks like he still has it in him, so he's got his gun out and he shoots Steven, and then Steven goes down. We switch back to Bianca's POV, and when she opens the door, she sees Steven crumpled over, Blake crumpled over, and the dad standing up bloody. And he says to her, I told you, Satnos, if you went to the police, I told you what would happen. And so all the rage, her seeing Steven crumpled over, like, that shit did it. He did the same bullshit he did to her mom when he was like, take the gun, take the gun. Well, this time she took the gun and she shot him. He didn't fall. So he sounds like a maniac. She thinks he's taking something. And which makes sense, because it seems like he's got adrenaline, which is causing him not to fall back. He took the gun from her, put it in her mouth, and 2 shots were fired. We go back, and Steven goes out. Bianca, everything goes black. I'm like, oh Lord, if Steven is dead, I am going to lose it. Like, I'm gonna be real pissed if something happened to Steven. They finally did it. They give us James' POV. So James is describing the phone call, the negotiations that he's doing with Tristan and stuff like that. Tristan's gonna come over for dinner, all this great stuff, and then how he goes in full panic mode as he's listening to what's happening on the phone. So Clark sees his face and immediately calls 911. So that's who called 911. And then he hauled ass out of there. He's terrified because she was like, say I love you back, and he wouldn't say it because he felt like if he said it, that would be the last time, and he just couldn't do it. So we stay in James's POV. He gets to the house. Clark jumps out. Clark knows for some reason to go over the back fence, whereas James is thinking she's in the house. So he gets his key, opens the house, but she's nowhere in there. And right when he's about to go out back, Clark stops him. He says, you don't want to see that. And he says, I have to be with her. And when he saw her, he thought she was dead. Thankfully, the paramedics got there and they were like, you gotta move. It's critical for you to move in order for her to survive. So that meant she wasn't dead. She had a shot. So then he hears a wailing, and it's Javier, because Steven's crumpled over. But Steven looks like he's not dead, and Blake isn't dead either. And I thought she was dead for sure, but she's not. So they're finally able to get everyone to the hospital. Clark and Tristan were kind of like, hey, call the board, tell them you'll give them any amount of money to get any type of, preferential treatment for them, special treatment. So one of the officers, Patterson, and who was the other one? The Patterson guy died. I want to say was it another one that died too? He might have. So he's going to, of course, they don't have any wives or children, but he's going to pay out to their families because this is absolutely insane. Again, Steven better survive. I'm not even playing. So Bianca wakes up 4 days later. First word she says is Steven. James says he's in ICU. She rips out her IVs. She's trying to get to him. And when they had to subdue her by like giving her a shot. Eventually they let her go in there to him because she said, if you just let me talk to him, if he knows I'm okay, he'll wake up. So they wheel her in there. She tells him, I'm okay, Steven. You can wake up now. Everything's okay. You can wake up. And there's no changes, but 2 hours later, Steven starts to come to, and he wakes up asking for Bianca, but he wasn't able to like do what she did, snatch out IVs. Eventually, they were able to see each other, and While they were waiting for Steven to wake up, let me go back a little bit. James and Bianca had a conversation. She apologized for going back to the house. James was like, I'm just so happy you're alive. The father, Sven Sr., was on a mix of bath salts and meth, and that's why it was so hard for them to take him down. Um, Blake survived, and I'm just happy. So when then Steven and Bianca reunite, Steven was like, he doesn't think he'll ever get that image of the father shooting her cheek out of his his memory, you know. And he also has decided he's going to propose to Javier. He wanted Bianca's blessing. Bianca says, I'll give it to you, but you don't need it, you know. And they just hugged each other. We fast forward a year. It's their wedding. She initially wanted a small affair, but you know what? She's got a lot of people in her life. And so she realized what James told her was the truth. You have room to love more people. So she's got a ton of folks there. Lana and Akira are there. They're together. Damien's there with Jessa. They're smiling at each other. So possibly something's going on there. Tristan and Danica are not together. She is being decent with him because they're walking down together. Um, Steven already married Javier. I think they went to an like Bali or something like that. Thailand. Somewhere they went and got married. And her and Jackie, the designer, they actually are friends now. And it was just what Lana told her. You got to challenge her and eventually you'll love her. And that's exactly what happened. So now they're really great friends. We then fast forward 5 years and she's pregnant. Her water breaks. He gets everything together. James does. They call Steven. Well, he calls Steven and he tells Steven, you got 5 minutes to get over here. If you don't, you're going to have to meet us at the hospital. So he gets her outside. The car is already packed. Security's already outside. Blake is still working, and as well as Clark. So they're both still there. And then Steven comes bucking over, Javier behind him, and he gets in the car and he's like, how's our baby? And that's how they reference the child. Like even James says, you know, our baby's coming tonight. Like because Steven's gonna be another father for the kid. That's just what it's going to be. Like, you know, you have uncle, but Steven is more than that. It's like he's so much more. So it's like it's gonna be all of their child basically. So what happens? Javier gets in the car. They get to the hospital. She's a little nervous. You know, she was nervous when she was pregnant too because it was like she didn't know if she was going to have those same issues, like the way she thought of a child, the way her father thought of her. You know what I mean? But when she saw the child's face, it was a wrap. You know, she loved that child more than anything. So they named the child Duncan Stephen Cavendish, and that's how it ends. Now, there's a fourth book called Mr. Beautiful, but it's basically telling things from like all the males' POV. So, like James, Stephen, Akira, Tristan, different ones. But it doesn't seem like it's a new book. It seems like a new story, just like it's telling you what's happening from their POV. But this is how we're gonna end it because this lets us know what's what. Maybe there's a little bit more info in the fourth book, so if you guys want to read that one, go for it. But what did you all think? Drop down in the comment section and let me know. I really loved it. I will say this. It's her fault. Like, she did not have to go back to that house. She didn't. And I don't know. I just feel like you look at doing that type of shit of like, oh, but I've got to go back and I've got to get this and that. And like, not only did you almost lose your life, but Steven almost was out of here. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, ooh, but thankfully, I think she's kind of accepted her role in life now, and Hopefully she doesn't make any more stupid mistakes. If any of you have read the fourth book, let me know what it entails in the comment section. Let me know. Um, but I really liked it. I thought it was a good little. I made it a trilogy. I made it a trilogy. But let me know what you guys think. Drop down in the comment section and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I will have those links available down in the description below. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.